Hello and welcome to our special coverage, and this is for 30 minutes about the war in Ukraine. I'm Melissa Nturonka. First, the headlines. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says retreating Russian troops are leaving behind landmines, creating a catastrophic situation. 7 humanitarian corridors planned for today, including the sieged city of Mariupol. Plus, protest rally in occupied Enerhoda violently dispersed by Russian troops, at least 4 people injured. Ukraine is making further territorial advances around Kyiv and claims to have retaken 30 towns and settlements. But as Russian forces retreat, evidence of civilian killings are mounting as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian troops are leaving behind landmines around homes and even dead bodies, creating a catastrophic situation. It comes as humanitarian corridors are planned to evacuate civilians.
Exhausted, fearful but grateful, this is how refugees from the Ukrainian cities of Mariupol and Melitopol said they felt following evacuations on Friday. Some of the passengers had to stand throughout the 12-hour journey due to the high number of people trying to escape. More evacuations are planned after Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister announced the opening of 7 humanitarian corridors, including from Mariupol. Encircled since the early days of Russia's invasion, the port city has been Moscow's main target in the southeastern region of Donbass. An estimated 160,000 people are still trapped in the city, short of food, water, and medicines. The International Committee of the Red Cross sent a team on Friday to lead a convoy out of the city, but they turned back, saying conditions made it impossible to proceed. In other developments, Russian forces targeted a major Ukrainian oil refinery in a series of strikes, according to a Russian military spokesperson. It comes a day after the Kremlin accused Kyiv of mounting a helicopter attack on a civilian fuel depot inside Russian territory. Russian troops have also violently dispersed a pro-Ukraine rally taking place in the occupied southern town of Enerhoda. The town is home to Europe's biggest nuclear plant, providing half of Ukraine's nuclear power. Meanwhile, in an early morning video address, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russian troops in the north of the country were pulling back slowly but noticeably. He added that Russian troops had moved towards Donbass and the heavily bombarded northeastern city of Kharkiv, saying the situation there remained difficult.
Hi, everyone.
As the war continues, the United States says it's providing Ukraine with additional security assistance, as well as supplies to respond to a potential Russian chemical attack.
The United States and members of the international community have, of course, repeatedly warned about the potential for Russia to use chemical or biological weapons in Ukraine, and that Moscow is possibly planning a false flag operation. In an effort to assist our Ukrainian partners, the U.S. government is providing the government of Ukraine with life-saving equipment and supplies that could be deployed in the event of Russia's use of a chemical and biological weapon against Ukraine. It does not compromise our domestic preparedness in any way, shape, or form, just for everybody's awareness, but we are providing it as we are providing a range of materials and equipment.
Russia has failed to take a major Ukrainian city since it launched its invasion on February the 24th. It has depicted its drawdown of forces near the capital Kyiv as a goodwill gesture in peace negotiations. But Ukraine and its allies say Russian forces have been forced to regroup after suffering heavy losses.
Stop Putin! Stop war! Stop
And for another week, thousands have taken to the streets in cities across the world to show support for Ukraine. The war has killed thousands and uprooted a quarter of Ukraine's population.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine continues. Today it enters day 38. But let's take you through the key events so far from Monday, the 28th of March to, of course, the 1st of April, Friday. We begin with Monday, which was day 33. Japan says that it will ban export of luxury goods to Russia, its latest response to the invasion. Ukraine's deputy head also said that more than 1,000 people were evacuated through humanitarian corridors on that day. Amnesty International accused Russia of committing war crimes in the Ukrainian port city of Mariupol. Britain confirmed the Wagner Group mercenaries were in Donbass, expects Russia to deploy plus for 1,000 for combat operations pulling from Syria and from Africa. Day 34, we see that delegations from Ukraine and Russia met in Turkey to conduct more talks aimed at stopping the fighting. Of course, that meeting hasn't gotten a headway as at this time. Ukraine's GDP also was projected to probably fall by 35% or even lower. That's according to the Ukrainian Prime Minister. He added that it would depend on the pace of post-war recovery of the economy and also export industries. Day 35, this is despite Russia's statements of heavy shelling of Kyiv and some other areas in Ukraine. It did continue. A U.S. official said that Russia's president has been misled by advisors in the invasion. The International Committee of Red Cross confirmed that the building with the Red Cross symbol on the roof came under fire. Also on that day, day 35, Germany triggered an early warning level for gas supplies amid Russia's continued demand to be paid in rubles. On day 36, we see Russia's defense ministry saying it's prepared to observe a ceasefire in Mariupol. There was also heavy shelling, which continued in Kyiv. A few other things happened as well. The U.S. considered the massive release of oil reserves to counter rising oil prices. And just yesterday, day 37, alleged strike on Russian fuel depot hurts peace talks. That's from the Kremlin. The U.S. also ordered the release of oil reserves and Russian troops left Chernobyl. That's according to Ukraine. Global and Security Affairs analyst Confidence McCarry joins us now for more on the program. Thanks for joining us, Confidence. Just before we talk about today's events on ground, you followed the events of the past week. What were some of those events, perhaps, that was most striking in this invasion for you?
Basically, everybody has been talking about Russia's poor performance in war so far. But I think what stood out mostly for me is the breakdown in diplomatic relations between the parties involved, that's Russia especially, and some of its neighbors with which it has some disputes, some land disputes with. For instance, Japan and the Soviet Union and Russia, by extension, have been in a dispute, locked in a dispute over the Kuril Islands since World War II. The Soviet Union took that island away from Japan, and there has been a series of diplomatic talks, negotiations about it since then. And over the past week, Japan practically abandoned every form of negotiation and diplomacy, and basically called negotiations over that disputed territory dead. And so, what stood out for me basically about that piece of information is that we may likely enter an uncharted territory, which this war has opened, where governments across the world are going to unilaterally make proclamations concerning territorial grabs that are going to have dire consequences for not just them, but also for the other disputing party. And whichever way this thing happens, if cooler heads do not prevail, if Japan and Russia do not return to the negotiating table, we will actually see another conflagration opening up in Eastern Asia, where we're pretty much soon.
With Confidence, also this week, some people say, I know the Turkish president said there seemed to be some sort of progress. It was a face-to-face meeting until they moved online. But then the Kremlin said that perhaps that was hopes of anything were dashed. And this was after the Belgorod attack, which Ukraine has not confirmed or denied responsibility. But how likely is Ukraine to be behind this, do you think?
Yeah, I believe 100% that Ukraine is behind it. If it was the Russians that were behind that attack, we would have seen NATO, the United States, and Russia and Ukraine rather calling it a false flag operation by Russia. But the deputy Ukrainian foreign minister has come out to say that they can neither deny or confirm if Ukraine was behind the attack. I mean, in U.S. military terms, that is called a deep strike. The helicopters, the 2 helicopters that were involved in that strike flew very low enough at least to avoid radar detection. And that kind of an operation took at least weeks of planning. This is the first, if it is confirmed from the Ukrainians, this is the first Ukrainian attack on Russian soil since the invasion began. And so we might likely see the war move on to a different direction. And yeah, clearly, if we are having Ukrainian military attack Russian positions, especially civilian facilities deep into Russian soil, I don't know. For me, it revolutionizes the way the negotiation talks are going to be going. It also significantly changes what is going to happen, and it gives one party, which of course is not the Russians, I think a leverage during the negotiation and the negotiation talks in both in Istanbul. I do yes, personally I believe that Ukrainians are behind the attack. And basically, what the attack was carried out to achieve is to strike fear into the hearts of the Russians that yes, you might have the superior military advantage, but you can still strike it deeply into your territory. So I think the Kremlin will be taking this threat very seriously. And as Dmitry Peskov, that's the Kremlin spokesman, said yesterday that the attack on Belgorod significantly changes the dynamic of the peace negotiations, and the Russians are going to be studying the situation very carefully.
But that's not what people want. That's not what everyone wants. That's also not what Ukrainians who have had to leave their country, their home. That's definitely what they want. They want an end to this invasion. But today is heavily focused on evacuations, especially the besieged city of Mariupol. We've been seeing some evacuation buses taking people away. But also, in terms of the talks, back to the talks now, which we saw during the week, some analysts have said that Russia is just using it to buy more time so its forces can regroup. Do you agree with this? This is also, on the other hand, we're seeing Ukraine saying that they're making more gains and pushing the Russian troops back.
Yeah, in terms of the cause of the war, we're seeing a change in the tide of the fortunes of both parties. At the beginning, it was more about the Russians doing the attacking and the Ukrainians doing the defense. Now we are seeing a lot of abandoned military hardware, both tanks and several other missiles that were hit, but verified that the Russians are basically abandoned, and the Ukrainians are going on the offensive. It's to tell you exactly how much war and the tide of war can turn in just a few days. If it is the attack on Mariupol opens a lot of speculations, and I quite understand analysts saying that it's just another Russian tactic to increase its advantage and all. But if you give a clearer picture of what is going on in Ukraine, you're having the Russians exerting maximum pressure both diplomatically and in terms of its military strategic objectives. On one hand, it is claiming it is retreating from the north. On the other hand, it is staging attacks from the Donbass arena where it has its own troops, as well as Chechen troops, the Wagner group, and as well as troops from the breakaway regions of Luhansk and Donetsk fighting and hitting Ukrainian positions. It is also scaling up its attack on Mariupol. Meanwhile, the south is also within its target for the taking, while it's trying to advance northwest by hitting Kharkiv so deeply. So basically, what this picture shows is Russia trying to eat its cake and have it, which of course is not entirely what the Ukrainians would agree with. I do not exactly know. I cannot say for sure what the Kremlin strategy is, because if it's anything that is clear, I think maximum pressure is being brought to bear now. And given what we have seen in the past few days, the Russians are not in any strategic advantage in any way to actually be the one exerting this pressure. And with the attack on Belgorod, Ukraine's military advancement and everything, I think for now we currently have a tide in Ukraine's favor, and we are looking towards a stalemate. And in war, a stalemate is to be avoided at all costs, because it not only bogs the warring factions into in an unenviable position. It actually takes a lot of manpower resources to maintain.
We'll continue to watch things. We appreciate your time always on the program. Global Security Affairs Analyst Confidence Makari, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me once again.
As the war continues, so does the economic impact. Let's take a look at some of the developments this week. The United States announced that it will impose further sanctions on another 120 entities in Russia and Belarus. The list includes defense, aerospace, and maritime sectors. On Thursday, President Vladimir Putin signed a decree saying foreign buyers must now pay Russian gas in rubles. It is part of Russia's retaliatory measures aimed at what it defines as unfriendly countries and regions. And Germans are now snapping up wood and coal even as the cold weather months are over, with an eye on climbing gas prices and uncertainties about the effects of a prolonged war in Ukraine. Germany on Wednesday declared an early warning of a possible gas supply emergency, a sign of concern about possible disruption or stoppage of natural gas flows from Russia. Mr. Shuaibu Idris is an economist, and he joins us now for more on the program. Welcome, Mr. Idris. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, and thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Great. First, how long do you think that this economic fight against Russia can go on for? Russia's economy is the one under siege, but will the West break first?
This is a $1 million question. How long the war will take is a near impossibility for anyone, whether Vladimir Putin or even Biden to state. What is certain is no matter how long this war goes on, there would have to be an opportunity to sit down on a round table to discuss and negotiate so that a lasting solution can be found. But my guess is we are in for a winter of long discontent, if you like. Excuse my choice of phrase, but I think in the next 3 to 6 months, we may not see, the end of this economic warfare between the West and Russia, as the case may be.
And this is also essentially to the global economy. Do you expect much damage, and to what extent? Because I know that the global economy, there are certain projections, growth that are expected. We've had COVID, and that affected, those projections. And now there is this invasion. How badly do you think that the global economy will be affected?
If you look at what even the United Nations organization has said about the possibility of hunger, as well as what the World Bank has said arising from the possible increases in interest rate, inflation, and the consequences of those increases on a price level, one can only imagine the extent of the damage and the issues mankind will be faced with. First, there is likely going to be hunger, and this will not be limited to, say, Ukraine, where the war is being fought, or, even Russia, the aggressor, as the case may be. Countries of Africa, countries in Latin America, countries in Asia, and indeed countries in continental Europe are all going to suffer the consequences of this war. Like I did say, there might be hunger, and there will certainly going to be some impact on economic growth. Certain countries' economic data will have to be affected, arising from general price increases. Imagine what we're experiencing today in Nigeria. Diesel that we used to buy at 218 naira, 220 naira, The last I heard of it was somewhere around 650, 710 naira per liter. That is a quantum increase.
I was
How
just
is it
coming to that.
possible that
Mr. Schreiber, sorry to cut in, but I was really coming to that, the issue of the energy gap. Essentially, if you see this, if there are any opportunities actually for Africa, Nigeria maybe.
Well, indeed, there are opportunities. Not way about it. Nigeria being one of the major gas-producing countries of the world, we have an opportunity to key in and to tap in and to capitalize and get into the European market that has been generally a bit difficult for us to get into. However, do we have the logistics and the infrastructure needed to cash in? The answer is no. Yes, because of desperation, continental Europe will buy gas from us to be transported via ships, as opposed to if we had had the opportunity to complete the Trans-African gas pipeline that was started, we would have taken that opportunity. But the point I was trying to make as to the impact of the war is there is going to be food crisis. The grains prices have increased. In particular, wheat price has increased significantly. We're talking of an increase from about $212 per ton to over $400 per ton. Some of the products that we get out of wheat are used by the common man. We're talking of the bread. We're talking of semolina, which we eat as semovita in Nigeria. We use pasta or noodles or spaghetti, as the case may be. These are likely going to be out of circulation, and is likely going to impact significantly as far as the food availability is concerned, and vis-a-vis the price. Needless to add that Ukraine being a major exporter of grains, once there is going to be a lacuna in getting supply from Ukraine, we're likely going to see absence of foodstuff for even the poultry farm, the poultry farms, the other animal feeds that are being produced. So with that, you will likely going to see even shortages of chicken on grocery shops if care is not taken.
So food for thought for our government and the people of Africa. We appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. Mr. Shuaib Idris is an economist. Thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
Pope Francis has come the closest yet to implicitly criticizing President Vladimir Putin over Russia's invasion of Ukraine, saying a potentate, which is an autocratic ruler, is fomenting conflict for nationalist interests. Moscow says the action it launched on February 24 is a special military operation designed not to occupy territory but to demilitarize and to denazify its neighbor. But Francis has already rejected that terminology, calling it a war. In an address to Maltese officials after arriving on the Mediterranean island nation for a two-day visit, he said, "From the east of Europe, from the land of the sunrise, the dark shadows of war have now spread." And this brought a moment of calm to Wharton Kharkiv as he played to a deserted school playground this week. Denis Karachevtsev started sharing videos of him playing the cello in front of damaged and destroyed parts of the city in social media March 22. Many of the performances are part of a project to fundraise for humanitarian aid and to restore Kharkiv's architecture. In his latest video, sitting outside a burnt and gutted school, the musician plays Cherry Blossoms by New York ensemble Project Trio. Kharkiv is Ukraine's largest city, and it has seen a lot of bombardments since February 24. Well, that's our program, half hour at this time. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Stay with Channels Television, your home for the news. Coming up next is Diaspora Network.